Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen neighbor stories. In this video, a Karen called the police on me because I built a fence around my private property and closed it off to her. She insisted that I must give her access at all times. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story goes like this. So the last time we moved, it was around September time. It is always stuck in my memory because the town we were moving to was advertising elections for the parish council. That did not seem important at the time, as I avoided politics like the Black Plague. It seemed to be causing more harm than good these days. Despite all this fanfare, I was really excited about the new house. It had a modern kitchen, 4 bedrooms and a wide back garden. It was not until the moving day that I found a flaw with it, or my children did at least. So while my wife and I were bringing in boxes, we allowed our children to explore and enjoy their new home, gravitating as children do to the outdoors. After I went outside to grab what I thought was the last box, I suddenly realized things had become unusually quiet. And despite my calls, my children did not appear. After some panic, I found that they had wandered down a path at the back of our garden that was partially grown over, but from the nearby sign it suggested it was a public path into the fields. Horrified by my late discovery and the dangers it posed to my family, I decided immediate action had to be taken. Now, before we even had time to settle or meet the neighbors, I had called a local construction firm to quote and put up the fence as quickly on the very same day, costly but correct. Time felt essential, as I was still in quite a panic that the children could disappear into the fields or worse if a stranger wandered into our garden instead. Well, because it was a Friday, I was unable to get advice or permission from the parish council, so rather than blocking the path entirely, I used the new fencing to create an alleyway from our driveway to the fields. I hoped that maybe enough that I wouldn't be asked to tear down the fence later, as the path was still accessible, and that everyone would agree to this sensibly. The first problem with this plan came the next morning when we had our first visit from the new neighbor. I was excited for this initially, but what my wife and I had expected to be a lovely welcome was instead a barrage of complaints from an elderly lady. The lady, who also introduced herself as Karen, used an impressive or shocking vocabulary of expletives to tell us how she felt about the new fence. In short, she did not like it. Apparently, Karen used to walk through the garden every morning to walk her dog, but when I mentioned that she could still get to the fields, she looked at me in disgust. I don't want to repeat too much of what Karen said, but she said that I was ruining the neighborhood feel and making things less open, as if comparing a small garden fence to prison walls. Even after explaining the safety risks with my young children, Karen called me selfish and then left. What a great start to living here, I thought. Well, with that poor first impression, I assumed the rest of the neighborhood would follow suit in hating me for protecting my children and prepared for the worst. Over the next few hours, we did get more surprise visits from other neighbors, but everyone else seemed a lot more genuine and was kind in their welcoming. In most cases, no one mentioned the fence at all, with the only other comment being that it looked nice. I was very confused at how much trouble I was in, if only one neighbor so far had a problem with it/me. After a few days, everything seemed to be going fine with no sign or mention of Karen, and then she came. Karen walked up to me as I was unloading groceries to tell me again what a terrible eyesore the fence was and that it was actually more unsafe because no one could see inside. When I asked why she wanted to see into my garden, she looked at me in a very peculiar way, saying that she needed to monitor my children for their own safety and that I must have wanted the fence up to hide my mistreatment of them. I was utterly flabbergasted by the sudden and severity of the accusation. A woman I had met not a week ago already thought so horribly of me, and why? Well, I'm not sure what she expected from this conversation, as after I refused her request, she stormed off as quickly as she approached me. The strangeness of these encounters led me to quietly ask about her to other neighbors, who all confirmed that she was bad news and could be quite troublesome to anyone who got on her bad side. Which somehow was now me. The next thing I knew, it was the evening and we were just setting the table for dinner when I heard a knock at the door. While I hoped Karen was not back so soon, I could not be so sure, so I peeked out the kitchen window first and found 2 uniformed police officers standing there. The police explained what they were here to investigate reports of child abuse. While the police would not tell me who reported it, I knew it could have only been one person. I was furious, but I knew resisting would only make matters worse, so I let them inside and answered their questions. Of course, I had nothing to hide. After about 10 minutes, they were ready to leave, satisfied that nothing was wrong. Well, unfortunately, the police car parked on the driveway had attracted curious neighbors who undoubtedly would be spreading this across the town by tomorrow. One neighbor in particular, despite best efforts to remain hidden, was peeking out from behind my fence. It was Karen. She must have been disappointed when she saw that I wasn't being arrested, as she marched over to the police car and began to have a one-sided heated debate which the officers either ignored or didn't hear as they drove away. I glared at her as she retreated back to her house, and I went back to finish dinner. The next day, we did get an influx of unusual visits, each person eager to hear more of the police story from the night prior. Karen did not come over, but she probably knew everything already as the person who called them. Then the next night, getting ready for dinner, and I heard another knock at the door. A nice lady from CPS, Child Protective Services, had received a similar report of child abuse and had been asked to investigate. I explained my declining relationship with my neighbor, issues starting from the fence that escalated to the cops and then these false claims. To her credit, she seemed to be quite understanding, which made me wonder how many other bitter neighbors made false claims like this, trying to ruin other people's lives for no reason. Just as before, the CPS officer left my home, but this time only one person was snooping outside. I waved to Karen as she ducked out of sight, trying to remain anonymous to yet another situation she caused. I was not about to stoop so low as to call the cops on her without a reason, so I decided to look for a reason in order to turn the tables on her. Back when I first put up the fence, I printed off new copies of the property deed and surveyor's maps to double-check the legality of my plans. I then went back over those papers to try and find something fraudulent about Karen, and I struck gold. It turned out that mine and Karen's gardens did not match what was on paper. In fact, her shed was on part of my land. I wondered why such an important detail was missing when I bought the house. The old homeowner must have been bullied into silence from being Karen's neighbor for so many years. I invited a council-approved surveyor to come and reassess property lines. I made sure to do it while Karen was away, so she could not object or put up a fight. The surveyor confirmed my initial suspicions and helped me file a report against Karen to regain my land. My report was answered rather quickly when I noticed local councillors had visited Karen to confirm the situation. It gave me a subtle satisfaction to watch her face go pale as they surveyed her garden. When the councillors left, Karen was looking furious and holding a document ordering her to move her shed from my land. I did not know if Karen was going to try and escalate the issue further, so just to be sure, I wrote Karen a letter with a stern warning about making any false reports or defaming me to the neighborhood any further. With Karen finally being dealt with, I decided it was about time to set the record straight with my other neighbors, telling everyone about who Karen really was. While she may protest it, it cannot be defamation if it is true. A week later, Karen had completely disassembled her shed, or more appropriately, she had paid someone else to do so, and the cost of getting the shed taken down could not have been cheap either, so I was half expecting Karen to demand me to pay it, but I'm glad that she kept quiet about it. Honestly, I expected more of a fight from Karen after hearing similar stories about horrible neighbors online, but I was grateful when she accepted defeat without dragging us both into court. I'm not too sure my wallet could have survived heavy legal fees on top of raising children. R.I.P. Karen clearly now realized the severity of her situation, and I was glad to see she would not cause me problems anymore. And on the other hand, after telling people about my troubles with Karen, the whole neighborhood turned against her. Karen was now apparently isolated, no one would talk to her anymore, and it was like she was living on a remote island. A week later, I moved the fence over to where it rightfully should have been, and with the extra space I decided to hold a celebratory barbecue. I invited the whole neighborhood too, but one particular person was expectantly absent. In the end, everything worked out just fine. Karen no longer bothered us and avoided contact at all times, even crossing the street when she saw me nearby. I knew she hated me, of course, but at least now she was not calling the cops or anyone else to my home, so I let it go. As much as I may now pity a sad, bitter old lady living alone, it was important to remember the hell she originally put me through. Karen tried to bully me, her new neighbor, into changing my garden just so that it could be better benefit her. And then when I refused, which was in my rights to do, she accused me of being a horrible child abuser. She piled on the pressure when she publicly embarrassed me by reporting me to cops and CPS, making a spectacle of it in front of the whole neighborhood. I could have given in and obeyed her, it certainly would have been the easier option. But for the sake of myself and my children, I stood firm and was patient with Karen until I found the right way to fight back. all of our neighborly issues are now but a memory, something I hope will become funny with time. Regardless, I'm glad to finally put it behind me after teaching that evil old bag a lesson she sorely needed. And the next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for severing from my friends over someone's autistic behavior? And by the way, if you've enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. So I am 27 female, I moved to a new town last year for a new job and after a few months found a social group in the new town that I get along with very well and we have similar interests and hobbies. However, one part of this group is Sam. Sam is autistic, functional, but he doesn't really get social interactions for the most part, and his brother Nate brings him to everything we do. While I find him a little off-putting, he has a habit of laughing at inappropriate moments and will ramble for hours about some subjects if someone mentions them. I get that it's not his fault and have always made an effort to be polite and considerate to him. Over the last 4 or 5 months, Sam has developed a very unsubtle crush on me, and from what Nate has said, I get the impression that I'm the nicest any girl around his age has ever been to him. He constantly goes out of his way to buy things for me, even when I insist that I can pay for it myself, obsessively follows me on social media, and asks if we can hang out just the two of us, which I always say no to, and has repeatedly asked me if I have a boyfriend, which I don't. I don't because I'm gay, though I'm not open about it to everyone. And even if I was interested in men, Sam is not my type between his mental difficulties and us simply not having any interests in common. I have not told Sam that I'm gay, but I have repeatedly firmly told him that I'm not interested in him, and Sam has not been taking the hint, and my friends, including Nate, have told me that they think it's cute that Sam is interested in me and encourage me to not take him seriously. Well, sadly, last week things escalated. My birthday was last week, and due to quarantine measures, a few of my friends sent me gifts in the mail, a Starbucks gift card, a gift over Steam, things like that. Sam, however, sent me a box of very expensive lingerie, easily hundreds of dollars worth, even weirder, it fits me so he somehow knows my size, and a long letter confessing how much he's in love with me and wants to see me wearing it, but not for too long. I know where Sam lives and with his and Nate's parents, called their parents on the phone and drove over to their house to return the lingerie. The parents were very weirded out but promised to talk with Sam. A couple days ago, Sam sent me the lingerie in the mail again with another long letter that this time said how he understands how surprised I must have been, but he cannot wait to see me in it. I send messages to Nate and the rest of my friends that I'm not comfortable being around Sam anymore and will not be meeting up with them in the future if Sam is there. When my friends blew up at me for hating Sam because he's different and leading him on, I shut down my social media account and blocked all of them. Now that I've had a day or two to calm down, I'm wondering if I overreacted. And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think OP overreacted or not? Either way, we got an update to the story that goes like this. So I learned a lot from reading the comments to this thread, particularly that I was wrong to ascribe Sam's behavior to his autism. It is just him being a creepy stalker with no boundaries instead. I took some of the thread's advice and confronted Sam's parents and Nate about this directly. Per the thread's advice, I went accompanied by a male cousin of mine who lives in the area who I trust after I explained the situation plus the mace I habitually carry in my purse. Well, in short, Sam's stalking extends beyond what I was aware of. That's how he knew my size for the lingerie, and in fact that was only one of several gift boxes he had bought for me on a schedule he had written up about how our relationship would go in his mind. He would spend, no joke, more than a few $1,000s on me. The parents confirmed that it was all Sam's own money from his job, but that part of his cognitive problems is a total inability to grasp money. Also, Nate specifically encouraged Sam's crush on me behind my back. I'm apparently by far the nicest and most considerate any woman has been to Sam, and both Nate and Sam thought that I was attracted to Sam, to the point of Nate and Sam telling their parents that Sam had found a girlfriend. Nate has his reasons that I don't want to get into. I'm not saying I agree with the reasons, because I don't, but I told Nate and Sam and their parents that I'm not and never will be interested in Sam. It's not because Sam is autistic or because he is white and I'm not. I did not tell them it's because I'm gay, just that I'm simply not interested, never will be interested, and find his behavior extremely creepy. I concluded with telling them that I'm willing to not contact the police or start legal measures about a restraining order if I never see Sam again, but that I've begun documenting his behavior, including making copies of Sam's letters in the event that I need to. I told Nate and his parents that Sam needs serious help before his behavior does escalate to legal and criminal consequences. I hope Sam can get the help he needs. My impression is though that he genuinely thought he was being romantic and acting like people do in the movies and TV shows he watches, and no one was telling him that's not how real life works. Their parents at least seemed to take this seriously, but as I left to get in my car, Nate shoved the box of lingerie into my arms and told me to keep it, and maybe I should stop being such a frigid bitch. I've made sure my apartment manager knows what Sam and Nate look like and what their phone numbers are, and to not let them into the complex or give them any info about me, and have laid out steps to change my routine in case Sam tries to resume his previous behaviors. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I have this one set of neighbors that are famous for always getting involved in get-rich-quick schemes. You know, the ones where they try to force you to join and buy things to sell them so you can try and fail to reach the top of the triangle. And by the way, guys, isn't that called pyramid schemes or MLMs? Anyway, they always fail because a few months later they have another one they are bugging all of us to join and buy products from them. This is just to show that I was not dealing with the smartest people in the world here, since they were repeating the same mistake over and over again. They would also get annoyed when I didn't want to buy anything because I had no need for it, and I knew buying it once meant they would never leave me alone again. They are the husband and wife from hell. Where I live, the parking works in a way that you can opt in or out of a parking space. They cost money, so some people who don't have a car or don't mind parking on the street usually save some. I like having my parking spot because there is no way I want to come home from the grocery store or work to find that there are no spots anywhere close. And then I would have to walk either lugging things or alone in the dark. My spot is not the best, but it gets the job done. Side note, the neighbors don't have a spot and are famous for trying to find out which ones are not currently owned and parking in them. However, I had an emergency and ended up needing to be in the hospital for a few months. Trust me when I say, it was horrible, and I hope I never have to do something like that again. All of the information for this story happened when I was at the hospital. I did not know about it till later, but for this story I'm just going to say what happened while I was unaware and in the hospital. After a few weeks, I could only assume that neighbors thought I was gone. There was no sight of me, and my car was sitting in the spot without being moved the entire time. I was still able to pay my rent, so I still owned everything, including my parking spot. I don't know what they were thinking was going on, that I just left and did not bring my car with me for some reason. Either way, they ended up breaking into my car one night and stealing it right out of the spot. Then they moved it a few blocks away while they were waiting for an offer to come in online. That's right, they were trying to sell my car like I had just given it away. It got worse though. Since my spot was now empty, my neighbors thought of another idea that could make them a ton of money. They were telling people that it was their parking spot and they did not have a car right now to use it. So they would be willing to rent it out on a weekly basis for cheaper than just buying a normal spot. For the rest of the time I was in the hospital, they were making money by renting out my spot to people. The spot that I was still paying for, and thought that my car was safely sitting in. Jump to when I finally got to go home and saw that my car was missing. Not only that another random car was parked in its place, I did not think it was the neighbors and thought maybe my payments did not go through and I lost my spot and the car ended up getting towed or something. I was wrong though, and the owner did not know anything about somebody else trying to buy my spot. Since I was not 100% sure, he said that he would wait to see who the owner of that car was and find out what was going on. That person was just as clueless and said that they rented it from neighbors. He told the man that he never saw a car with my description parked in the spot. I was furious about what the neighbors did, but that was a matter between the owner and them for selling a spot that did not belong to them. For me, I had assumed my car was long gone, and while I could sue them for money they probably no longer had, I needed a new car now. I went online and started searching up cars that were the same as my old one, because I really like how that make and model of car felt. That was when I saw my car for sale and I could not believe it. I knew it was my car too, because while they did block out the license plate number, they did not bother to get rid of any of my bumper stickers. They also showed the side of the car where I could see a scratch that I had gotten last year on it. This was my car and I was so angry I thought I might end up back in the hospital. So I decided to message the buyer, who obviously was my neighbor, but I gave them a fake name. I asked them questions like how old it was and why they were getting rid of it. Then questions he could not seem to come up with an answer, like how many miles were on the car and the last time it had been serviced. Finally, I told him I wanted to buy it and made a time to meet with him tomorrow to get it. The look on his face when I was standing there at the meeting place when he pulled up in my car was priceless. He did not have a key, so there was damage from where he hot-wired it. I put the camera and video on my phone and I was ready to call the police on this man. He knew that running away was not going to help, so he just sat there defeated while the police came and listened to both the stories. Mine you already know, but his was the craziest thing ever. He said that he used to study law and he knows that after a certain time without being used, an idle car in a spot basically goes up for grabs. That is not, nor was it ever, a law, and the police officer knew it. He was put in handcuffs for Grand Theft Auto and taken to the station. He ended up making a deal so that if he paid to fix the damages to my car and give me back the money I paid for the parking spot while I was in the hospital, the illegal money he made went to the owner. If he did those things, which he did, he would only get probation, which meant if he was caught doing something else illegal, he would end up going to jail for stealing my car as well. I kind of wished that he went to jail so I knew I wouldn't have to deal with him again. I did partially get my wish in the end. The owner was not happy about what he did, and since they didn't have any money, they could not afford rent. They got evicted and had to move somewhere else anyway. Meanwhile, I am feeling fully back to normal and wanted to share this story to remind all of you that stealing a car should only happen in a video game. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/PattyRevenge, and it is brand new. It is titled, "Keep Your Red Hands Off My Popsicle." So I used to keep popsicles in the company fridge. My buddy and I would take turns buying them. Well, one day I go in and this old girl had one for herself and two more that she was grabbing, not sure why the extras. I took them from her and told her I purchased them. Why did she take them? She said she thought the company bought them. I said the company would not label them with my name. I left a rubber rat inside the box. Someone heard the old girl squeal when it fell into her hand. I did get talked to by the team lead for the incident, but she could hardly keep the smile off of her face when I described the prank. And yeah guys, I suppose some people will never learn unless they are ratted out on. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.